weekend, Cruella debuts in theaters. That means it's time to determine the best of the Disney live-action adaptations with the 16-film bracket showdown. Hi, my name is Sean, and I love to talk about movies way too much. With that in mind, here is how today's video is going to work. I took 16 Disney live-action adaptations, broke them into 2 different divisions, and then put the different movies into pairings of kind of movies in a specific category as a nice rivalry. From there, I put a series of polls on my community tab where you could cast your vote to see who you think should move on to the next round. As of this moment, about 85,000 votes have been cast in total. Each one of these rivalries will be determined based off your poll, the Rotten Tomatoes score, and my opinion. Once we move on to the second round, the semifinals and the finals, it will be determined just by my personal opinion. Be sure to join me down below in the comment section. Let me know which one of the upsets, which ones you agree with, what your ranking is, all of that fun stuff down below, and let's get started. Up on the screen is the full starting bracket. The left division is the Cruella division, and on the right is the Malefecient division. Here we go. Kicking things off with a Renaissance rivalry, we have The Lion King versus Aladdin. With The Lion King, you have this technological wonder where Jon Favreau created a live-action world entirely with computers, and in doing so, did a shot-for-shot remake of The Lion King with like one new song, one new scene, everything else, just The Lion King with stunning photorealistic CGI that's meant to be live action. I really enjoyed it in the theater, and in the 2 years since, I've never wanted to rewatch it. From there, we all have Aladdin from Guy Ritchie, and this is one that I had fun with in the theater, but my house has rewatched this movie like 1,000 times. And the story of Aladdin, I think, translates really well to live action because you got a guy running, jumping, chases. But what did you have to say? According to the poll, you guys chose Aladdin by a dominating amount. According to Rotten Tomatoes, The Lion King is at 52%, Aladdin is at 57%, so slight win there. My pick based off what I just said, I'm going with Aladdin. Here's something you guys said in the comment section. John says, The Lion King felt like a 2-hour tech demo meant to show off a new console with an old video game. That is a great analogy. Rivalry number 2, Boy and His Pet Stories. We've got Pete's Dragon versus Christopher Robin. Pete's Dragon takes a movie from about 40 years ago that was actually live action but had an animated dragon in it. Totally reinvents the story, puts it in a different time period, changes almost all of the details of it, and tells a nice little boy and his dog story, or boy and his dragon as it is, that has a lot of emotion. Then you have Christopher Robin, which is a reimagining of the Winnie the Pooh storyline with Christopher Robin grown up Hook style, having to rediscover Winnie the Pooh. The user poll definitively went to Christopher Robin on this one. Rotten Tomatoes, though, gives a distinct lead to Pete's Dragon. As for me, my vote goes to Pete's Dragon on this one. So we're going to go against the poll on this particular one. With Christopher Robin, I felt like they took a concept and pacing of wordplay, the jokes that worked really well in Winnie the Pooh, which is like an hour long, and stretched it out to an hour and 50 minutes long. It was a concept that simply wasn't designed to sustain a film of this length, whereas Pete's Dragon felt like a nice, solid adventure. As you can imagine from the poll, the comments were strongly in favor of Christopher Robin. Christopher Robin felt like something somewhat original. I loved Christopher Robin. Christopher Robin is one of the best Disney movies I've seen. That will bring us to our Jungle Book rivalries. Rudyard Kipling's The Jungle Book from 1994 and the 2016 The Jungle Book from Jon Favreau. This is a bit of an interesting one because Rudyard Kipling's Jungle Book is much more of a sequel continuation rather than a remake. And then when you have Jon Favreau's 2016 film, it's a remake with cutting edge technology and an expansion of the story. I'll tell you this, if you haven't seen the 1994 film, which based off a comment I pinned on the poll, many of you haven't seen it, I recommend checking it out. It is a solid, underrated, underwatched, little adventure film. Then you have Jon Favreau's film, which is just a technological wonder that found a way to expand on the story of the Jungle Book, kind of give it more tension, more urgency, while still keeping the charm and putting images on the screen that is truly astounding that they were created on a green screen and in a computer. As for the poll, you easily gave it to the 2016 film. Rotten Tomatoes gives it to the 2016 film as well, but Rudyard Kipling's The Jungle Book still has an 80% on Rotten Tomatoes. And as for me, I too would give it to Jon Favreau's film, but truly, Rudyard Kipling's The Jungle Book is worth checking out. That'll bring us to the final rivalry in Division 1, our 101 Dalmatians rivalry with Cruella versus 101 Dalmatians. With 101 Dalmatians, you had a direct remake of the animated film back in 1996 into kind of a slapstick, fun family comedy. With Cruella, you have an origin story for the main villain. When it comes to 101 Dalmatians, it is a classic family 90s comedy. They were very much based off the Home Alone model of humor. Cruella, probably of all the films on this list, the one that has the most distinct style to it, with the look, the vibe. I personally, not quite sure if the concept itself was a film worth making, but I think they made the best film they could make in light of a concept that's very peculiar to try and turn into a film, as a puppy killer is not the most likable of protagonists. So Rotten Tomatoes gave this one to Cruella with 73% versus 41%. The poll, however, distinctively went to 101 Dalmatians. For me personally, I'm going with 101 Dalmatians. So Cruella, unfortunately, is going to be thrown into the pen, kicked out of this one. In the comments, someone said this: why is Cruella not doing so well? It's easily the best live action remake. Sure, they retconned, reimagined new things, but it was cool. That seems to be the thing. Either you can buy into the central concept, root for Cruella, or you're like me and you watch it and we're like, that was really well executed. I just can't get on board with this character. Moving over to the Maleficent bracket, we have a Silver Age rivalry with Maleficent versus Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland. With Maleficent, you have a reimagining of Sleeping Beauty, where we take Maleficent and we kind of reframe her as this misunderstood victim that led to her actions that she deeply regretted. Angelina Jolie did a good job. There's some cool action sequences. There's some nice visuals to it. When it comes to Alice in Wonderland, it's an odd one because on paper, Tim Burton seems like a great choice to do Alice in Wonderland, but it feels like they tried to take Lewis Carroll and all of his wordplay and wit and cleverness and squeeze it into the Disney blockbuster template. And all of a sudden, Alice is a chosen one who's in armor, battling a dragon on this epic hero's journey, which is simply not what Lewis Carroll's Alice in Wonderland was all about. Rotten Tomatoes slightly gave the advantage to Maleficent. The poll distinctly gave it to Maleficent, but not as dominating as some of the other ones. As for me personally, I'm also going to go with Maleficent. Maleficent is the one that will be moving on. But to throw just a little bit of support over to Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland, in the comments it said, I happen to be one of the few people that actually love Tim Burton's Wonderland. I seriously don't get the hate for it. Then we have a Golden Age rivalry with The Sorcerer's Apprentice versus Dumbo. The Sorcerer's Apprentice takes a single segment from Fantasia and attempts to build an entire film out of it. So it is a very loose adaptation where legitimately the Fantasia sequence is just one scene in this movie and everything else is made up around it. And then with Dumbo, they took a very short, breezy 1 hour film. And literally, the movie Dumbo is only an hour long. You kind of basically took the basic premise of the original and then added a sequel onto the second half of the film and expanded the roles of a bunch of human characters. So neither one of these films seem to be the most popular films on this list. But according to Rotten Tomatoes, Dumbo gets a slight win from the poll. However, you guys distinctly gave it to The Sorcerer's Apprentice, and I personally am going to go with The Sorcerer's Apprentice. It's a very flawed film. It's not great by any means, but if I had to choose which one am I going to rewatch, I'm going to rewatch The Sorcerer's Apprentice. It's fun to see Nicolas Cage as a sorcerer, and I just thought Dumbo was a misfire. In the comments section, the film watcher said this: I don't really like either, but Sorcerer's Apprentice had Nicolas Cage as a wizard and Hiccup as an apprentice. If you don't know, Hiccup being from How to Train Your Dragon. Next up, another Silver Age rivalry with Lady and the Tramp versus Cinderella. Back in 2019, one of the originals for Disney Plus was a live-action remake of Lady and the Tramp. And then about 6 years back, Kenneth Branagh adapted Cinderella live action. When it comes to Kenneth Branagh's Cinderella, I just think he was a great pick to adapt that particular story because he has such a long history of doing these Shakespearean grandeur type films, so he's able to bring a sense of elegance to a production. Lady and the Tramp, more just kind of the shot-for-shot remake, cute little dog romance. It's good enough, it's fun enough, not the most memorable of films. Rotten Tomatoes definitively gives it to Cinderella. The poll likewise gives it to Cinderella with a dominant force, and I too will be giving this one to Cinderella. Lady and the Tramp, it was fine, but it's not one that I would ever choose to rewatch myself. I felt Cinderella is one of the best Disney live action remakes without question. In the comments, one person says, I didn't know that they remade Lady and the Tramp. I got a lot of that one. A lot of people did not realize there was a live action remake on Disney Plus. And our final rivalry of round one is a Renaissance rivalry with Mulan versus Beauty and the Beast. Last year, Mulan came out to an enormous amount of controversy. Basically, every single thing about this film made the internet mad. So I checked out Mulan the day that it dropped. As someone that likes martial arts films, kind of big sweeping epics, I thought it had some nice cinematography to it. I enjoyed the fights inside of it. So I actually liked Mulan. And then we have Beauty and the Beast. I did grow up watching Beauty and the Beast, and I was the perfect age for Beauty and the Beast when it first came out. And I had the pleasure of taking my daughter to go see Beauty and the Beast opening night. It was one of the very first movies she ever saw in the theater. She wore a belle dress and everything. It was a really fun experience, but for the most part, this is a shot-for-shot remake of the original with just some new scenes thrown in there that adding the Black Plague to Beauty and the Beast, I don't think did it any favors. When it comes to Rotten Tomatoes, these two are right next to each other. Mulan has 72%, Beauty and the Beast has 71%. So by this much, Rotten Tomatoes gives it to Mulan. The poll, however, gives it to Beauty and the Beast by an enormous amount. Like there's an 80-point swing in there, giving it to Beauty and the Beast. As for me personally, as you can probably put together, I would give it to Mulan. But because the Rotten Tomatoes score was essentially tied, but the poll was anything but tied, I'm actually going to sway this one towards your poll results, and I'm going to give this one to Beauty and the Beast because clearly your voice has been heard and you prefer Beauty and the Beast way over Mulan. After round number one, this is what the bracket looks like. 8 films have been eliminated and 4 more are about to be cut. Kicking off round number 2 is Aladdin vs. Pete's Dragon. This is a bit of an interesting one because Aladdin falls into that category of more direct remakes of a very popular film, and Pete's Dragon is a reimagining of a significantly less popular film. Aladdin made over $1 billion, and Pete's Dragon kind of underperformed a little bit at the box office. I would say both of these are solid films. Pete's Dragon has a little bit more emotion to it. Aladdin is just an awful lot of fun. If I got to pick between the two, I'm going with Aladdin. Aladdin is the one that has been rewatched in my house countless times. It just kind of has a bit of that it factor, and they found the perfect person to play the genie. But Pete's Dragon, also a really solid adventure. Then we have The Jungle Book 2016 versus 101 Dalmatians 1996. This is a fun one because they are both Silver Age remakes, but they're also extremely different in what they did with their source materials. In the case of Jon Favreau's film, they converted it into a more serious story-based adventure with stellar visuals. With 101 Dalmatians, they shifted it from kind of like this stealthy heist movie about cute talking dogs to a Home Alone slapstick family comedy. Between the two films, I think The Jungle Book is distinctly the standout here. It's a technological achievement. I think it actually improves on the story of The Jungle Book by giving it more urgency, more danger, and kind of putting you on the edge of your seat from beginning to end. Moving over to our other division, we've got Malefecient versus The Sorcerer's Apprentice, and honestly, I don't think either one of these are some of the stronger films in round two. Each of them are pretty flawed in their own ways. I think Malefecient, has a little bit stronger of a story to it. If you take it on its own terms, I think there's some nice epic stuff in there. When it comes to The Sorcerer's Apprentice, I think it should be more epic and fun than it actually is. It has the cool visuals, the great cast, a great director, but then it just kind of falls flat. Maleficent, a little bit more iconic, even just simply because Angelina Jolie is just such a great pick to play Maleficent, so it squeaks out the victory here. And our final rivalry of round two is Cinderella versus Beauty and the Beast, and for this one, without question, I am going with Cinderella. As I mentioned before, Beauty and the Beast just doesn't have anything new to offer that I'm interested in. It does add a couple new sequences, but I don't think they make the story better or more compelling. It just makes it longer, whereas with Cinderella, as I mentioned before, I think is one of the best Disney live action remakes. It was source material that lends itself well to the live action format, and they got the right director to do that could bring the right tone, elegance to it, and just kind of tell this great story about this stepdaughter who's abused that becomes a princess, and I just think it works. Cinderella moves on to the semifinals. And after round number two, this is where the bracket sits, and we are down to the final four. Real quick before I give you the final four, if you're enjoying this video and want me to do more like it, be sure to just smash that like button, leave a comment down below, and share this video, and let me know what other franchises would you like me to run through a bracket showdown, and do you have any ideas for ways that I can improve it to have kind of more user involvement in the process? In the Cruella division, we've got Aladdin vs. The Jungle Book 2016, and this is one of the toughest rivalries for me because both of these movies are in my top three favorite Disney live action adaptations. If you actually check out my rankings over the last several years, I think they've gone back and forth as to which one I prefer over the other one. Aladdin, I think, is the more rewatchable, fun film. The Jungle Book, I think, is just much more the technological wonder, bringing the Jungle Book into this new format. So I could go either way on this one. If we bring Rotten Tomatoes into the mix on this one, it distinctly edges out, doesn't edge out, it distinctly gives the victory to the Jungle Book. If we head on over to the user polls, in both of them, you selected each of these films over their rivals. But if you head into the actual comments on Aladdin, I put up, someone said, can I pick neither? And I pinned that comment. Hundreds of people liked that comment. When it comes to Aladdin, this is a movie that a lot of people just view it as unnecessary. I personally think it works, but a lot of you don't. So putting all the pieces together, the Jungle Book is going to move on to the finals. And then over in the Maleficent bracket, we've got Maleficent versus Cinderella. And for me, this one is pretty easy. Of the final four, Maleficent, I think, is the weakest film. So if you set aside Angelina Jolie being really great in the title role and there being some nice, big, sweeping, epic sequences, it's not a great film. Cinderella, however, critics like it, the poll liked it, and I think it's a movie that just works live action. It adapts nicely, and you can change things without it feeling like you're losing something and expand the relationships of the family and stuff like that. That works really well live action. Kenneth Branagh was the right guy to do it. Cinderella easily moves on to the finals. And that will bring us to the finals, The Jungle Book 2016 versus Cinderella. Both of these movies are in my top 3. I think both of them do a great job of delivering on the promise of the premise. Each of them does a good job of adapting the material, making just enough changes while being true to it, and bringing what live action can add to each of these stories. In the case of The Jungle Book, it's a little bit more simple of a story, but told with technological excellence and urgency. With Cinderella, you've got more kind of subplots, more characters kind of going along with it, but told with a nice elegance at the same time. So who will come out on top with this one? Rotten Tomatoes distinctly gives this one to The Jungle Book 2016. For me personally, I actually give this one to Cinderella. You might think I'd go Jungle Book. I actually go Cinderella. It edges it out just a little bit, so each movie has one vote. I threw up a poll, one final poll, so you could cast the final vote on this one. And distinctly, you picked The Jungle Book over Cinderella. 16 movies entered, only one movie leaves, and it is Jon Favreau's The Jungle Book. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to smash that like button, leave a comment, share the video, and let me know what other franchises you would like to see a bracket showdown for. Thank you so much for watching, and keep talking movies too much.